I remember when I moved to Berlin about, was it now 3 or 4 years ago, something like that, when we were looking for a guitarist. I wanted to make, I had a Substereo was a band already, and we'd been a band for many, many, many years in Copenhagen. And I remember moving to Berlin to study music and thinking, it'd be cool to have a band here in Germany as well, because the idea was that we would be able to play with the guys from Denmark and just fly them in. And I remember thinking, well, maybe like for logistical reasons, it might be a good idea to have some musicians to play with here. And that's when I met Nick at the university, and I started playing with Nick. Now, that was cool and all, but we wanted to find people who we could work with in creating what Substereo was, because I wasn't interested in just having musicians, like session musicians, but I wanted to play with people and create things with different musicians. And we decided to put up an ad on in the classifieds, and that's when you contacted us. Do you remember what you wrote?
Yeah, it was kind of a special situation back then, I would say, because at that point I was like applying for different projects and was really like kind of searching for something where I could not only be a musician but take things further. So I applied to a couple of bands, and I don't know if you remember that, but like after we talked to each other, I put the offer down to meet each
that's
other.
Right, yeah.
Because I thought at that point that I was not committed enough in order to fit in a project like that, which would require a lot more than just showing up to rehearsal and having your guitar with you.
Did you think anything about, did it have anything to do with the fact that Substereo was already a band and that we had some members?
Maybe, but more in a sense of that I thought, okay, these guys are already having it down, so I can't like appear at a rehearsal not being prepared or something like that. And it was not that I was not interested. The complete opposite was the case, but it was more like that in my private situation at that time. Like I felt like I couldn't like do my part, and that's the whole thing. Like I didn't want to just add a piece of the cake. I wanted to bake the cake. Yeah. Right.
Well, that's what we wanted to. But that's the thing. We had about 19 applicants for a guitar at the time, and I remember that I think it was about 5 auditions that we did, 5 or 6 or something like that. And I remember looking through them, and and there are some really good guitarists that were on there. But then I remember that you had written us, and then turned it down. And I looked at Nick, and I was like, "That Robin guy, we need to make him show up." and I did. I wrote you again. I said, "Dude, I know you said no, but I'm not going to accept that. So you're going to come in and you're going to audition." And you did, and it was awesome.
And yeah, we were really lucky, I would say, because obviously, like if you're doing music together, then it happens all the time that you meet up with people and you try to get in touch with them and see if it locks in not only like musically but also like on a like personal kind of.
You said something that day that was really cool. It really hit home with me, because that's one of the main. You said the song is the biggest
ego in the room. Yeah,
there you go.
We had that, and I mean at that point, I really meant it that way, because like I come from an environment where I was kind of more into making music as a job, and just showing up somewhere and playing like 80 songs a night, and then going home and like receiving your money, and then it's fine, okay? So, and there's like nothing wrong with it, but at that point I was searching for something that goes beyond. Like I wanted to do something that is not only making music and writing a couple of songs, because that is basically what it's all about, isn't it? Like you come to a rehearsal and you want to, of course you want to write songs, but sometimes like, and this is exactly how I felt about you guys, is that when I listened to the music and I listened to like Nowhere Land, the kind of concept thing and everything, I thought, okay, these guys are really taking it beyond in that matter.
I think that was one of the reasons that we had that many applicants also, is because Substereo was already an established thing. And I mean, we weren't like super famous or anything like that, but we had already released 2 albums at that point, and you know, had a solid following in Denmark. But to me, it was like we were starting from scratch again, and that was kind of difficult for a lot of people to kind of absorb from the outside, especially musicians that were applying and playing with us. It took us forever to find a bass player also. I think it's like a tradition in Substereo. I think we've had, I don't know the exact number, but I think we're at 14, 13 bass players that we've played with.
But like, if we sit here and kind of think about this whole process and how it all like started, did you ever wonder like how close it was that we missed on each other?
It's amazing, yeah. And it's only because I said that this guy, we have to...
And like from going to several auditions before, you were actually the first one that ever did something like that, where I said no, and the person came back and said, like, "No, I won't accept it."
That's like, that's not good. I gave you a few months, like a month or something. I think
something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that, but the first time that we got together was like in the old practice room where everything was kind of removed already.
Gosh, that was horrible.
And that day we met, and I said to you, because I was really busy at that time, I couldn't prepare anything. Like I think I had one song or something like that prepared, and it was, for me, it was more about like the personal level, and also it's like if you're kind of doing anything that is related to music, you really need to lock in.
Yeah, and for us, I wasn't really interested in you know, you preparing anything, because I could tell right away. We could tell, both Nick and I, whether it was going to work or not. And I think a lot of it was finding somebody who wasn't, because there are a lot of good guitarists out there, and a lot of people know their instrument. It's fair enough, but everybody can play an instrument. Not everybody can create stuff like what we've done. And Nowhere Land was quite a mouthful, because Nowhere Land was it's a story more than just an album. It was we had the book, and we were reading out loud live, and had this whole concept which you didn't really understand in the beginning, did you?
No, I didn't.
Not many people did. Yeah,
it was a little bit of a tough one, I would say, because what you normally do is you go through a Spotify account, or you look up bands online, and I think like I wouldn't kind of exclude myself from that kind of behavior, because I do that all the time. I just go to Spotify, there's a band, and like after 30 seconds or something, I can say if I like the band or if I don't like the band. Yeah. And it's in a certain way, it's kind of sad, because I am somebody who loves listening to albums, like full-length LPs, just to kind of get into the artist's head and kind of see what he was aiming for, or what he was writing for. And but like in today's music scene, you get like the whole market is so oversaturated by everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's why we did Nowhere Land.
And the problem was that I haven't listened to Nowhere Land from the very beginning to the end.
Right.
Like I was listening, I think, to The Island, which was a good single on its own, but it was hard to understand.
Yeah.
Like what is...
Yeah, and actually that reminds me that there was somebody at the university who was studying, because I moved to Berlin to study at the university. So I showed that album to a lot of people, and I remember somebody saying that they were listening to Nowhere Land in the car, and they were like, "There's something wrong here. Like it doesn't make sense." And they were back and forth, and it turned out that their player was on shuffle. Yeah. Right? And he's like, as soon as he took the shuffle off and started from the beginning, he's like, "Oh, now I get it," because it's one long song. It's like one long piece, basically, and we chop it up into singles. But that was the idea. We wanted to be able to do that. I don't know if we hit home with it, but the idea was to have this whole story about Ben the main character going through his life since he was born and all of this, and then becoming a pirate and figuring out he's something else, something bigger, and this whole thing had to be translated into music. And I think for me it was pretty clear. And when we were writing the songs, I locked myself into a room, basically into the practice room, and put on blue lights and had like wave sounds and ship sounds and everything, so that I could really get into this universe. So when I hear the music, I'm in that universe automatically. And the challenge was, how do I put other people into that universe? And I think that's where it kind of...
Exactly. And like, I have to say honestly that from the very beginning, I didn't understand what it was all about. That came later, like when we got like into the practice room and like wrote the first couple of ideas and rehearsed some songs. Back then, it was more of like, I heard the single Cry Freedom, and it was
the first album.
I could have, like, after the first couple of chords, I knew this is interesting, because there is like, obviously I'm not that old, but I have played in like quite a few projects actually, and there is like something about, or there was something about the writing craft just from that intro that made it interesting. It was interesting chords.
I remember
it was an interesting rhythm, and I thought,
you called me. You're like, what's the voicing on that chord? The voicing on that. What do you mean?
And it's like it was like something totally like messed up on the guitar. Like there was, I remember there is in the like there is I think it's a G major chord or something like that, but it has like a voicing like that, and then you switch the melody line, and I was like, wow, that is cool. That is cool, and I wanted to be part of it, because I like normally what I wanted to do is I wanted to join a band that is like talks the same language musically that I do. And
but that's also interesting, because I'm not very well. Nick is super theoretical, like theoretical in music theory, so he knows, he's got the notes and the this is a blah 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 and this is a blah blah blah, and I sit there playing, and he's like, well, if you do blah, blah, he's got the math down, right? Where I am the exact opposite. I'm like, if it sounds good, it sounds good. If it doesn't, then it doesn't, and I don't care, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just doing, and that's, you asked me, I was like, I don't know. I put my finger here and here, and then and you're like, because you're kind of like in between. You have both worlds. So,
but I started at a pretty similar level, because when I started playing guitar or making music, like I come from a really musical family, so I got involved into music all the time, like night and day and night and day and night and day, and I always wanted to be that person. I always wanted to be the musician. Like, when I talk to people, a lot of people say that they are like the black sheeps or something like that, if they are doing music or if they are getting involved into the topic more. And for me, it was always like, I wanted to be exactly that person, because I looked into my family. I had my uncle, I had my grandfather, I had my cousin, like everybody was doing music. And it was, for me, it was such a like breathtaking experience to just, when I was small, I was just staying there and listening to them for hours. They were playing guitar or doing whatever they did, and for me it was always, I want to be that person. I want to be a musician. And so when I started, I didn't know anything at all about music theory. I just like played what felt right. Also like with different techniques on the guitar. And then I finished school, and then I thought, okay, like there are now two ways that you can take, like two roads you can take.
The theory one, or the...
No, actually, it was more about commitment, and I wanted to be a musician. And so I thought, like, what is something that I could do? Then I thought about, like, okay, you can study guitar, you can do this, you can do that. But then I thought, I don't want to study a certain instrument, but I want to study music as a whole. Like, and this is why I ended up like studying popular music, is that I always thought there is much more to music than just playing a certain instrument. And then there was a need to understand what I was doing there. Like, I remember my guitar teacher, for instance, like I was there in the first lesson and everything at university, and he said, okay, we need to redo a lot of stuff. And so technically I started like not from the beginning, but it was so like frustrating.
Yeah.
And I needed to learn that theory, which was great to understand what I was doing there. But everything that I write, everything that we compose as a band, just comes out.
It's sound first.
It's sound first.
And also I'm making it sound like I don't know any theory or don't care about it. I do realize it's important. I learned it for the first time when I was in the army, because I joined the tambor corps, which is, they have the pipes and drums, as you call it, the big drums and the flute. And I remember I was at a interview or the audition, and I didn't know how to play flute at all, but I saw them and I thought they looked cool, and I brought my guitar to the audition and I just played a little classical piece, and I got the job basically, which is doing 1 year with the Royal Guard, the big fluffy hats and marching for the Queen and all of that. And I said, well, and then they gave me a flute and this is here, play this, and I tried and it was like. Like no sound came out, and then they asked me a theory question. I can't remember like how many quarter notes and whatever, and I was like, beep. And they were sitting there thinking,
it was the same in my audition, like in Germany, when you want to study anything music related, obviously you need to go there and do a test, right? And they asked me, I think the question was, what is the difference between a normal minor and a harmonic minor scale? And I was sitting there like,
yeah.
My name is Robin.
Yeah, exactly. I did the same thing. But anyway, so they said, all right, we'll teach you, don't worry. And they did. And every morning we sat there with the flutes, and nobody could play. I mean, I think we had like 2 guys who could play, maybe make a sound, right? Like playing and playing. And we learned it from scratch. And we went through the notes, and what would happen is in the tambor corps you have a constable, a private, who has been there for a long time, so it's like a professional musician, and he would sit there and have the class in front of him, and he would play the song. Today I'm going to show you this. At this point they already taught us the theory behind, like we knew about theory, so they taught us how to read music basically from scratch. And so we had the notes in front of us, and then he said, this is a song, I'm going to play it for you. Whatever, right? You play the song, and then it would be like, and then we like try that, and we would go through the notes, and then he would do it again, and then we would play it, and people were following the notes, and that's how we would learn a song. And then you'd have the piece that we would march to, and you would do this every day. I learned the songs. I knew all the songs, and I think we've been marching for the Queen, doing the parades and everything for, I think we must have been at 6 or 7 months. And then one of the constable, he says, I've noticed that every time we play, whatever, I can't remember what song it was, like, you play, and it's or something else, right? It's like you put an extra note. Where did you see? Where on the sheet is that? I hadn't been paying attention. What I've been doing is I just been listening to him play it, and then I'll just play what he was playing, right? Because I remember the song, so I was like, all right, so I need to do this. I didn't spend 0.5% of my energy looking at the notes. So it took them about 6 or 7 months to realize that I couldn't read the notes or didn't care about notes.
And it's so funny that we are talking about this now, because basically this is how it all started. And I remember that day like it was yesterday or something like that, when you came into the practice room and we had that little piece of Over and Over, which was basically the guitar intro.
Dun, 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 dun.
Exactly. And we were sitting there, and I thought, yeah, okay, that's yeah, that's this and that, and immediately it was like that everything I have learned about theory and yeah, you can compose this and you can compose that was just gone for that very second, because for me, and this is like how everything started, like everything that we did in the Renaissance series, every concept that we had, every like song that we've written, I only saw it like Bob Ross is standing in front of us, like, and wanting to, like, and you, like, when at university, when we got into a pub and we got really drunk, then afterwards I was going home watching Bob Ross videos. He was like standing and painting and I'll take a little bit of that brush, right? And so this is exactly how I felt about constructing the first song for the Renaissance series, which was Over and Over. And, you know, everything came afterwards, like the concept.
But it was complicated.
It was not easy.
It was super I remember there were like counter beats and everything, and it took us. I was like, "Hey, I have this, guys," and then everyone looked at me like, "That's not supposed to be possible."
And then we were like 4 guys in the room, like 3 of them talking in a certain like theory language and everything.
And I was like, "Use your ears, listen." I was like, yeah, but it's behind a beat. It's like, yeah, but
it was hard sometimes, because I think like, and this is of course like the whole approach and everything, just like Bob Ross staying in front of his painting and knowing that this color is blue and this color is red. This is like what for me was talking about, okay, this is a counter beat, or we need to do this, or we need to put this or that chord in. But to me, it was always like when we started the Renaissance series, it was like painting colorblind. Being colorblind, just staying there and thinking, I don't know what blue is, I don't care what red is, but I have a vision in my head, I want to create a certain feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that was like, to me, the biggest challenge in the whole, like not writing only over and over, but creating something, creating what you like said about Nowhere Land is that it's a universe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And for me, at that point, it was clear, yeah, this is it. This is it. We are going to paint a picture, and we don't know how this picture will look like, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, we had so many moments where we got like really challenged. Was it in the songwriting process, and then like what would you think? Where did this idea come from? Doing the Renaissance series as what it is, the Renaissance series.
Well, it was a special one, wasn't it? Because the Renaissance, I mean, we already had Nowhere Land, and Nowhere Land was had this whole universe and this whole thing. And the thing with Nowhere Land is that when we started writing it as a band, I think I had an idea for a song, and we jammed on it, and then the guitarist at the time said, it sounds like really a piratey kind of song, I said, yeah, it is kind of piratey. Maybe I should write another. And we tried another one. The next one was also kind of piratey. And then I was like, well, it feels like there's this ship and it's doing this. And then we started talking in the practice room, and it became a story. And then I would go home and I was like, well, then he did this. That's the thing. It's not because, to go back to the theory thing, it's not because I disrespect the theory. I think it's important. And if I need to do it, I will do it. But I'll set it apart from the actual sounds and the idea. And why is that? It's because when I write music, personally, I feel like it's more of a story. I've never considered myself a musician. I've never considered myself a guitarist. I've never considered myself a vocalist, because I never felt I was at the level where I could say, okay, now I'm a guitarist. Now I'm good enough to be like, there's always somebody who's better than me. But if there's one damn thing I'm good at, it's telling a story. It's being this storyteller, and music is just a tool for me, like painting, like a brush. You know, I'm not a brushist. You know, it's not how it works. So, but that was a very conscious direction. We took Nowhere Land. We said, we're going to create this thing, and it became a story. What's next? All right, well, he does this. What would that feel like? What's next? Where Renaissance series was completely different. It was almost the other way around. we had these songs and these ideas, and we put them together, and we jammed on a lot of. Some of them were like an idea, like that over and over thing, where I came with the idea, but it's not my song. I didn't write the song. I just had the lick, and then it wouldn't be anything if you hadn't put your part, or if Nick hadn't done his part. And our bass player at the time had a big role in that also, Reich, who's we were playing with. So I mean, all credit to him as well, because he had a big part in that. And then we had what was it? 2 songs? I think we had.
I think so. It was. Well, I remember that Adelaide was like a special composition that you and Nick basically did. I think you told me that story, that it was like, what was it again? Like you composed it in like one night or something like that, and everything like fell together, and this was kind of the...
That's right, yeah. Yeah, because Nick had a school project, and he had to write a song, basically. And I said, well, okay, let's write a song. Let's do it together. And Nick plays piano, so he came with the piano. We sat here in the living room, and he did a chord progression. And I said, well, that's cool. And we sat there, and I could hear the whole damn song in my head, like perfectly, like down to the whole thing was there. Well, he was playing it, so he wrote the chords and the progressions, and I would just sit there going, try that. Or that thing you did before, try that. And he just put it together. And I think he got so confused at the time, because he's like, he wants me to do what? I did what? And then I was like recording it and like writing it down and writing the chords down. And finally I said, all right, I think we're done. Yeah. I recorded this piano piece, and he had all these chords, and he said that he walked away from there thinking, okay, I don't know what, like, I just played some chords, and it worked. Like he came, like it was his idea, but there were so many of them that I just kind of like took all of his pieces and just said, all right, this piece. And then I sat down, and I called, no, I did it on the computer first. I did computer drums to get kind of an idea of where I wanted it. And I finished the song that night. And I put it, and I sent it to Nick, and Nick's like, what? Like he didn't expect that at all.
I remember that demo actually, because and this is like what we kind of also have seen in the process of doing the Renaissance series, that normally, like, what you would do is you write a song, and then you go to a studio, to a really expensive one or something like that, and then somebody sits in there and like records what you were doing. And we kind of did that as well, if you remember that we were in that big Funkhaus studio, and we tried to capture.
That was our first actually like Substereo thing.
Exactly. And I think that there was nothing wrong with the recordings, but like we felt that it didn't capture the moment of us being in that practice room sitting together.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember the demo from Adelaide, and I was listening, like, as you know, like I have worked in a studio, I have a little like home studio, and was really like into production and recording and everything. And I had this demo that you made, and I played it on my like studio monitors, and it was horrible. It sounded like
it was a homemade
exactly.
Yeah.
But you know, for some reason there was a certain aesthetic to it, like homemade. This is what I thought was so important in the process, because I like, and this is like, if you talk to somebody who's not that much into audio production and try to explain what the process is of creating something, of recording songs, then there is like a huge difference, for me at least, if you are sitting at home and you're doing like demos and everything. And of course, like the technology has developed so much that everybody can sit at home and put together like a demo. You could even produce a fucking Grammy record in your apartment,
if you have the knowledge. And that's a misconception, isn't it? Because you say, well, everybody can make an album or a demo or whatever. No, they can't.
Yeah,
you know, it's like they say you can, and of course you have the technology for it, but you can't not have the knowledge and sit there. You can sit there, but you're going to make crap, and a lot of people do make crap, and that's just the truth of it. And I mean, we've bent over backwards having to learn it the hard way.
And we made a lot of crap. I mean, that is like...
That's the way, yeah. And you had some studio experience. I had studio experience. We did Nowhere Land by ourselves. It's not perfect. When we got to the final phase, which is the mastering phase, a lot of it was saved. Luckily, because we had like really strange frequency issues and this and that. So it's not perfect. And again, we wanted the homemade kind of feel, where the first album, Fuel for the Revolution, that's made in a studio by a top-notch producer, the guy who did Motley Crue and No Doubt and all that. Flew him in from LA.
And it sounds amazing.
Paid thousands and thousands and thousands of euros for 25,000 euros we paid for that album from our own pockets, basically. We had to borrow the money and then pay. It was crazy. It was this mind-blowing thing. And we ended up with an album which was sound-wise. I mean, you can argue
Top
whether
notch.
you can argue whether you like the songs or not.
Yeah, but like production-wise, it was there's no
production-wise, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think I was okay with paying that money, because for me it was more an education. I learned a lot of stuff that I had no idea about. Recording, I learned in that studio.
And for me, like when we decided that we wanted to do a lot of the Renaissance series at home, the first thing that I thought was, this is going to be tough.
Yeah.
Because for me personally, it requires a stupid bravery, if you can say that,
Or
like
just stupidity.
to do that, because like, for instance, you record a drum set, and we have this practice room that sounds like garbage, basically, right? You have frequencies bouncing around, and the kick drum is and the snare drum is and and we were like going crazy with it. I remember that we were sitting in my studio for days and hours and hours and hours and hours, and trying to get it done with over and over, for instance. And then we sent it to the mastering engineer to Denmark. It was like, okay, guys, this is not going to work. Like,
well, that's the thing. But it was a conscious choice. We decided that we wanted to do this ourselves.
Yeah.
And we also decided that, because that's the thing. Substereo was already a thing from Denmark. But Substereo, because in the end I stopped playing with the guys from Denmark and I had only you guys. It was a new band, basically. And we even talked about, should we change the name? Like, should we start from scratch? And I was like, let's reinvent this thing instead. And there was a lot of like,
this is how the Renaissance series, the name came
Renaissance
up, right?
is a rebirth.
Yeah.
It's French for rebirth. A lot of
I
people,
remember how we talked about that, like rebirth. We want to have something that represents that.
Yeah, exactly. And so we decided that it was going to be this homemade thing. I think we got a lot further than we expected to, because I think
of course, and I mean it's
sound-wise, we're talking about the audio. Obviously, there's the videos that also go along with it. It's just a whole different category. And I think a lot of people see the project and they think, oh, okay, this is this video thing, and nobody really realizes how much work went into the music.
Yeah.
Like you said, we sat there for hours and hours, and not even that. We recorded one thing, and then we would finish the whole damn thing, and we'd be like, that guitar sucks, let's go back and do it again. And the drums suck, let's do it again.
And I think, like, for me, it was not only, like, if you say the drums suck or the guitar suck, it was not that it was recorded, like, completely, like the recording was crap.
Yeah.
But it was more like, and this was, I think, the biggest challenge in producing that record was to tell the story.
Yeah.
That is what we have talked about. And still, if I listen to it today, if I listen to the masters, it's far away from being perfect, like really high resolution audio. But it's like, for me, there was one certain moment where we got I think it was the test master or something like that for Over and Over. Mm-hmm. And I was like walking around here in Berlin, going to the subway. I don't know where I went, but I had it on my headphones, like stupid plastic, like consumer headphones that you would normally wear, not like high tech equipment, like
the cheap ones.
The cheap ones. And I was listening to the song, and there was this, like, you need to help me out with the lyrics here, like in the bridge. What is the exact lyrics in the
I can't remember exactly
pedal in the breeze, summer wind, and then there came that line, some lose, some win, and I was some what was it? Some will never know, some will die, some will try, or something like that.
Exactly. And you remember it more than I do.
And I was like walking around and thinking, man, that is intense. I was close to tears, really, because I recaptured that process of us failing and failing and failing and failing and failing, and eventually we got something that was not only recorded really well, but it was exactly the sound that we were looking for. It was telling a story, and this is like, of course, like if you talk to somebody that is like listening to music every day, then obviously the production and the sound plays a huge role when you want to tell a story. And for some reason I was listening to that master, and I was like, as I said, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was amazing. But that goes back to your question that I didn't quite answer earlier, because I talked about Nowhere Land. You asked, how did we come about with the story? And here's the thing. We created the songs of Nowhere Land, the previous album, because we had a story. But Renaissance was the other way around. We allowed the songs to tell us what the story was going to be about. And I remember sitting there in a cafe listening to the songs, because we already had recorded the songs, we had the lyrics and everything. And I remember writing down the lyrics, like keywords from things that I recorded, because often when you write the lyrics, when I write lyrics, I don't know how many people do it this way. I don't think about what I'm writing. I've always kind of explained it like as if I'm a radio. Like the words are already there, like in the ether or whatever. And it's same with the music. Like my job is to be the radio, the antenna, and just kind of absorb and just put it down or whatever. Where it comes from, you can argue. Some people say it's from the gods or the angels, and some people say it's subconscious. I don't know. I don't care, because my job is simply to who was it who said the when they create a statue, they can see the stone, and the statue is already there. And their job is just to take away everything that's not supposed to be there. Like they didn't make the statue. The statue is already there. It's in the statue, but it's just a matter of removing all the stuff. And in the end, here's the statue that was already there. And it's a very interesting way of seeing it, because it's kind of the same with the music. And for this reason, I had no idea what words I put down. It just
And then
happens.
we also had this like kind of odd situation that the Renaissance series is basically, and a lot of people don't know that it's a mixture out of new songs and old songs that were re-recorded, and then we have Raindrops, reconceptualized, but then we had Raindrops, which was, if I remember that right, one of the first songs that you actually have ever written in your life. Like how old were you? Like 13?
I think when I got the initial ideas and did the first demos, I was about 13, 14. And then I did like the first solid demo when I was in the army. Every morning I would what was it called? Help me here. It's not a 4-track, but you had like these next generation
these little recorders, right?
Like a box, and you have like a little mixer, and you instead of on 4 tracks you'd record on tape. This was like a digital one, right? It's like an 8-track, I think it was. And it was this thing, and I had my microphone and my guitar, and for inspection in the morning when they would check the room, I would hide it. We had like an extra closet, and we just locked that was like for private stuff. And then as soon as they were gone, I would put everything. And I had my recording studio and my music studio and everything. And when we were done with our duty for the day, I would sit there and record songs. I think I made like 35 songs or something in 1 year. And that was one of them. And I had a demo, and I thought, I wonder if we can reinvent that song. I wonder if it fits in this thing. And we were listening to the lyrics. I think the lyrics had a lot to do with it, because it kind of closes the chapter, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does.
Yeah.
And it's still like if I talk to people, it's still like people's favorite on the whole.
That's so strange to me. It's the one that took the least effort.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we had like crazy things like Whiskey and Wine. Remember where you did all this orchestrating things and like 17 guitars at once.
Whiskey and Wine, and Adelaide for that matter, but Whiskey and Wine is a math project.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it was a math project of mixing it, because you need to like in the frequency range you have. Everywhere you have little gaps, right? And like if you think of an orchestra, every instrument in an orchestra has a certain frequency range where it's like happening.
Yeah.
And you like if you have like 3 or 4 of the same instruments, then it's more for loudness reasons and not for them playing different things and like fucking around in the same like frequency range.
Yeah.
And with Whiskey, it was like we started with a plate of spaghetti. Like it was, okay, how are we going to make this happen technically? And we had this vision, and like there were many phases in that production where I thought, this is impossible. It's impossible to...
Well, your computer still crashes every time we open the project.
Exactly, because there's so much processing going on the drums, and there's so much processing going on the guitars, and was exactly like Bob Ross, if I like imagine him staying there and is like he has too many colors. He doesn't know. Like,
no, it's like having 10 pictures on top of each other.
Yeah.
And then you just have to kind of remove until you have.
It's like an onion, basically, like Shrek said.
Yeah.
Like Shrek is like an onion.
Yeah. But that being said, once we had the final, it lives up to the vision.
Yeah.
100%. I listened to it and I listened to the details in it, and it's all there.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense.
And I mean, at that point where we had the audio set and we got through so many processes of re-recording things, of like mixing things. I remember that Adelaide, we had like different opinions about how it should sound and everything.
Yeah.
So we went through all of that, and then we had the final product. We had the audio. And I think that was actually the point where we thought, what are we going to do with it?
Right. Where is the story going to go? Because I was thinking about what are the songs telling us? Like, what is it going to be? And I wasn't sure if, and we talked about this a lot, like, what is it going to be, another Nowhere Land? Are we going to do something like this? I can't remember exactly. I don't even know how. I mean, it's probably the dumbest thing we've ever done in our lives. But also the most amazing thing is to create a series of videos.
Exactly.
We're like, how do we do this? And I remember thinking, whoa, I wonder if I can draw this. I wonder if they can animate. And then I remember sitting there thinking, okay, so if there's 24 frames per second, well, let's cut down that to 12 just to make it easy. And we have about 20 minutes of music, 20 frames and 12 frames. And I did the math. How long does it take me to do one painting, one drawing? Okay, it's about, if I do it, maybe 30, 45 minutes, and I did the math. And I remember thinking, okay, I'll be here until 2025. if I don't sleep and I don't go to the toilet. and
we talked to so many people about it. I remember that I had a talk with somebody who knew a person who was studying like film and everything, and she was really involved into this whole stop motion universe. And like what I kind of like got from that source is that it's a fucking science. Like there is no really doubt about it.
And the people who are involved in animation are super dedicated to it. And I none of us in the band had any idea about any filmmaking whatsoever. I have a camera, and
and we had this. Like, this is what kind of ended up.
With the logo. Yeah, really, we had the logo. I built that guy after we recorded the songs.
But I mean, like, for me personally, there was such a like major shift in the whole process when we started to write the storybook.
Yeah.
Right? So I remember that we had this vision, and it was again a stupid bravery that we thought we can do anything and just let our like creative minds just
and then
produce everything.
Exactly, yeah. And after
mind.
doing the math, thinking, okay, if I do it by hand drawing, I'm gonna be here to 2025. Let's do stop motion. That seems easy. Idiots. And then I said, all right. And I think we started because your girlfriend had to. She had to do a project for
university.
Basically.
Yeah, and that kind of pushed it over the edge because
we had a deadline.
We wanted to do something like that, and we talked about the concept and everything. And I remember saying to her, it was, I don't know if we get it together. Like I was really not sure about that. Yeah. And it turned out so.
Well, she came over and we sat here at this table and created this stuff. Like she built the house. I built like the fence and the door, and like we got together, and only for the first video, obviously, because the first video was what she used for her project. But she actually, this is part of the Adelaide video, but like we created this together.
Yeah,
which is amazing. And did the parts, and we had the storyline, and we all talked about it, like where we wanted to take the story and what we wanted to do with it. And then I started filming. And basically, you know, with stop motion, the cool thing about is where normally with animation, I would have to make a drawing and that takes 30 minutes or whatever, 40 minutes. That's one frame. And then do another drawing, that's 2 frames, and have 12 of those. And then I have 1 second of footage, right? So it takes X amount of hours. With stop motion, the cool thing was that I was able to take a photo and then I just have to move the arm a millimeter and take another photo, and that took a few seconds, right? That way it was a lot quicker than having to draw. The problem was lighting, flicker from outside. I had to close off the windows and everything. Then you do like get almost done with your whole scene, and it takes, you know, maybe like hours and hours just to get the right movement, and his arm is up, and then he falls over, right? And then you can start from scratch, and again and again and again and again and again and again, and then the computer wouldn't work, and this because we don't have any of the equipment and the lighting, and it was a mess. But that's how so we got through it. I think in the end it turned out really well, but it took
a ridiculous amount of time, basically.
Hundreds of hours. I think the first one was 300 hours. The next video was 600 hours. Whiskey and Wine took about 600 hours of work.
Yeah, of course. And you know what I think where the similarity between the audio and the video production is that, like, when we started, it was a little bit naive, obviously. But what I really liked about the process was that every idea that we had, where the story should go, and you know, we talked so many times about how do we want to build those videos like in a chronologically, right? So we started like with the first video, and it's already in the past, and then the second one is even more in the past, and we thought, is that like, is
that gonna work even?
Exactly. Do we do too much with it? And that was kind of crazy, I think, because it felt like there were all these ideas that we had in our minds. And when we brainstormed about the Renaissance series, what should the videos look like? What should the storyline be? It was all at once, unfiltered.
Yeah, well, I call that creative vomiting. Yeah,
creative vomiting, exactly. And we had all this like input, and then we needed to filter it. Okay, what can we use from that in order to make it happen? Anyhow, and then like I know that we have. I think it was when the first video was done, we were really, really insecure if this is going to work.
Oh, absolutely.
And like what the kind of like resonance from the people is. Yeah. And man, it went like this.
It was crazy.
It was,
and the weird thing is, we had no freaking idea what we were doing.
Of course not.
No idea.
It was just like ideas popping out.
And a few YouTube videos. How do you do it? Like technically, like where do you put the light? I don't know. You saw a few articles. How do you put together a story? You know, how do you...
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
We just kind of did it. I think a lot of it was the charm of Ben. Because he's so cute. And this robot was actually modeled exactly after Fuel for the Revolution, the cover.
Yeah.
I went in and I said, all right, how was he made? Because we had the robot, and then the robot was... there's a lot of story behind the logo, like why we decided to have the robot. There's a lot of meaning behind it also. And Fuel for the Revolution was an idea that we're all these robots and we're following, the jobs. And for me, it was a personal struggle at the time of holding on to a day job and having to, be the slave and get there and sit there and work for somebody else and be like a robot, basically. And at the same time, trying to be a full-time musician. So basically having 2 full-time jobs. And as you know, being a musician is not a job, it's a lifestyle. And it was just clashing with, with who I was as a person. And that's why Fuel for the Revolution was this idea that it was a revolution against being this robot. And that's why the cover is a whole bunch of robots, all the robots in the world, with one robot saying, screw this, let's just play music. He's holding a guitar, right? And he's on his back. And that's why I decided to go back to that. I said, what does that represent to this project? And that's why Ben became this. Now, Ben, this is where it became interesting, is also represented in Nowhereland. He's the main character of Nowhereland, and therefore we have the hand-drawn animation part of the Renaissance series, which shows how Ben went from being that guy to becoming a robot, because it's a continuation of the same story.
And this is exactly what we wanted, right? We wanted with Renaissance, it was not about creating something completely new, but we wanted
a rebirth.
A rebirth,
yeah.
Right?
He's reborn into the robot.
Yeah, and we wanted to tell a story. And I think what is like so crazy about this whole process, and then obviously we continued with the Adelaide video, and we continued with Whiskey and Wine. And for me personally, as you said, it was like creative vomiting all the time.
Yeah.
Just throw out ideas. And at that point, we didn't really care if anyone is going to see this, first of all, and as I said before, what the resonance will be. And we got totally overwhelmed. I mean, then we had this idea to apply for film festivals. So that was something completely new to us as well. Not only kind of writing songs, creating a story, doing that video, but then you got into that like director scene of being someone who is not only a musician or a songwriter, but then is somebody who is actually creating content or is directing a music video. So how did that feel?
Well, that's the thing, because we were a band, like every other band, and we would get on stage and we play our songs, and we would have band photos, and that was it. We had music on Spotify and all of that stuff. But then you and I sat down. This is why it was so incredible that we finally, that we actually got together after the audition and we started talking about these things, that we decided that not only do we need a rebirth as a band, but we needed to reinvent the concept of what a band is for us. And I remember we were talking about what is it that sets us apart? Well, you're really good at sound, building sounds, and using your guitar as an orchestra in a way, in many ways, and your approach to music is similar to mine. And that was the musical side. But as I said, I never felt that I was a musician or good enough to be a musician or good enough to be a guitarist. But I am a storyteller. And I said, all right, well, let's do this thing. And instead of having us as a band in the center, let's make the story. Because you said at the beginning, the song is the biggest ego in the room. And it's true. And I kind of moved that on to, well, the project is the biggest ego in the room. It's not about us. It's the same concept with the radio thing and the antenna, right? It's there. It's already there. It's just our job to communicate that. And that's why we decided to put Ben in the limelight and make the story, and the story is nothing without the music.
Exactly.
That's the thing. It's interconnected, and the books and the everything that is parallel with this story is all part of one big project. So I think that was quite interesting, because I haven't seen very many bands do that.
I think not anymore, because this is what I think happened as well, like to the music business or music landscape in general. Like bands, they start to disappear for some reason. Like the classical bands, like everybody knows Queen, The Police, or like those big bands.
Well, yeah, Pink Floyd and The Who, they had The Wall and Tommy and those things.
Exactly,
yeah,
and that was the time of like concept albums and everything. And
I think it's coming back though.
It's coming back, but I kind of like the idea to approach this whole band thing completely differently.
Yeah.
Because like what happens, or what at least what I feel like happens in music industry nowadays is they try to create a myth of one person doing everything on their own, where everybody knows, who takes a look into the booklet, that often there are like producers involved, songwriters involved, there are this and this and this, and they are not in the spotlight. It's like only they try to promote one person as a myth, like somehow. And I like we talked about it for so many hours that we didn't want to be the kind of like band that puts one person in the spotlight, and we also didn't want to put everybody in the spotlight. We wanted to tell a story. We wanted to like have more like you said, it should be a lifestyle. It should be something like how we felt in that very moment that we wanted to express anyhow. And we didn't had any clue at all how to do it. Like with the music, with the videos and everything. And I remember that we like, then Adelaide happened, and then we had Whiskey and Wine, and like I know that for both of us, Whiskey and Wine was always like the little baby Yoda kind of thing that we needed to take care of, right? Because it was such a complex song. It was like I wrote in a post when we released it that this was one of the most intense songs in order. How to write them, how to compose them, how to produce them, how to mix them. For me, it was one of the most difficult songs that I've ever done in my entire music career. And so
it doesn't sound like it. That's the cool thing about it.
And then we released the video, and I was really, really insecure about that one, because we had this like whole storyline with the mysterious cloud, and of course
that being said, I was in Denmark at the time when I was making the video. So we were separated because of Corona. So we had no idea. So you were in Germany, I was in Denmark, and I was making the video, and I had you on the phone and chatting, and you're like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think it's gonna work. Like
we were like,
nobody's gonna understand it, and we were like brainstorming and ping ponging, and then I would make a little piece, and I would record like 2 or 3 seconds. And you're like, and I listened to a lot of your feedback, and a lot of it was adjusted because of what you said, and that's really cool. And man, the response,
that was something that I have never experienced before.
We won 2 awards and got semifinalists for. It's ridiculous. I don't know
laurels. Like if you go on YouTube and you are searching for filmmakers. Their like main project is to create films, and sometimes you see a video like with independent directors and everything that have like 1 or 2 laurels or something like that. And then I look at the thumbnail now with Whiskey and Wine. It's like
I don't get it. But the other thing is that
it's unreal. Basically.
What's weird is that a lot of these films that I've looked up, at least, have teams and teams of people, and we did this by ourselves.
Of course.
And you said at the very beginning, it's super important that we as a band do like push this narrative. It's us. It's just us. You know, I've been doing the filming and the drawing. We've all done the story together. We've had input from our girlfriends and this and that. And you know, where do we want to take it? But the craft the actual filming and the editing and the music, you did basically 98% of the mixing, and I did 90% of the filming. Of course, we were doing it together. I was there, and I was holding the reins when you were doing the audio, and you were holding my reins when I was doing the video. So I always tell people that because my name is on as a director, so often people think, well, this is your thing. You're doing this, right? I'm like, no, it's Substereo. Like it wouldn't be anything without the music, right? And it wouldn't have gone in the same direction at all without the band. So it's super important for everyone to understand that this is a band project.
Exactly.
It's incredible that it's been so well received, and the stop motion, like specifically that I've looked at, I've been able to find maybe a handful, maybe 3 or 4 people that have tried to do it that way, homemade, and it's taken them years to accomplish. So I don't even understand how we've been able to get as far as we've gotten. I think it's because we are a special breed of idiots.
Yeah, definitely.
That do not understand a no.
And also, I think that we just didn't expect all the feedback that we got from all over the world. I mean, it's not only that, and this is what I think makes this project so special, is that people in Peru, in Lima, they understand what it's all about.
Yeah, because it's visual. That's why.
It's visual. And I mean, we had this interview with that radio station, and there was this journalist, and she was asking about this whole concept all the time. And I was blown away.
Yeah.
I was blown away that we finally managed to not only see our music as something that we do because we learned how to do it and we created it, but we told a story.
We told a story, yeah. But I mean, technically, when I look at our so our music we've gotten to a level now where I can say that or you have gotten to a level where as a mixing engineer and as a producer, you can play with the big boys. I think that's for me telling you that you're there. And how can I prove this? Well, just listen to the music that we've recorded. It's that simple. It's on a really professional level. Musically, production and songwriting, that's all arguable. You can like it or you can not like it. But the technical level of catching the frequencies, that's black and white. That's you can do it or you can't.
Exactly.
And that is at a level where it's professional, which is amazing that we've been able to get to that level. The video, when I watch the videos, I still cringe because yes, it's nice, and yes, we've gotten a good response, but I still sit there thinking, oh, fuck, we don't deserve it. And the reason I think that is because a lot of the animation videos, like the actual technique of, the way they move and the smoothness and the arm, and there's some people out there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a professional level. So what was important, because it's the first time we've ever done anything like this, that we focus on things that we are good at. And part of that is, what are we good at? Well, making it look, the colors, the shape, the backgrounds. And even if the movement isn't perfect, it's still a stunning image, right? And the same with the drawings. We do the music video. Yeah, there are a lot. It's not Pixar animation. I mean, the movements are choppy and everything, and it's just blah, 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 and some of it. But the colors and the paint, and that's why I decided to do it in watercolors. Like all of these are like hours of sitting there with watercolors, because in the end, it's a nice picture to look at. Because that's what we can do. But the animation itself is amateur at best. And I accept that 100%. And I think it's important to accept that we focus on what we're good at and try to get better at what we're not good at.
But it shouldn't hold us back in order to tell the story. And I feel the exact same way when I listen to the audio. I hear all those imperfections in the recording process, obviously because I have some experience recording in a really expensive studio and having thousands of euros worth of gear, and I'm sitting then in my like own personal studio and try to make it work anyhow. And still, like today, I'm listening to it, and it's like this thing, and it was like at some point it was like a dog like trying to catch its own tail, right? Yeah. So it was like going in circles and circles and circles. But I think that is exactly what makes this project so interesting, isn't it? Like the message of the Renaissance series is that no matter what it is, like there's nothing holding you back.
That's the moral of this story. I think that the one lesson that if we can, you know, pass this on to anyone else is that just do it, you know?
Exactly.
And if you're
fail
and if you suck at it, which I absolutely do, then focus on the things you can do
and enjoy sucking at it.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole process. You won't get any further if you sit down and tell yourself that, okay, this recording isn't good enough or that video sequence isn't smooth enough. You won't get anywhere. And we wanted to go to 11, right?
Right.
Like we didn't want to go to like 10, but it was kind of a challenge. We felt provoked in a way that we had all that creative output, and there were so many steps in the production process that said,
well, you pushed it because I remember we were sitting there and you're like, we need a product.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to be something. Like we can sit there all day, and so many people do this. And I even just read a book about it, where you're you're sitting in this trap of an image of who you think you are, and who you are, and who you are to other people is what you deliver, what you put on the table, and all of these other ideas of who you are, like I want to be an astronaut, right? Inside, I'm an astronaut, and I feel like I'm an astronaut, but I can't even fly a plane. Why? Because I've never taken the time to learn how to fly an airplane, you know? So who you are, who you think you are, and who you actually project yourself are is just a matter of having product, having your skill turn into a physical asset. And you are the one saying, well, you know, we have all these great ideas, and it's Substereo and this and that, and the only people who know that is us.
Exactly.
Because we have nothing to prove it. So just do it. And that's been ringing in my head for these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. I'm sitting there thinking, hour, how many? I think we're up 2,000-3,000 hours now of
and
work.
I think there is no secret to it that we went crazy.
Yeah.
Like almost 100 times during the process. There were so many times where I thought, sitting in front of the project with I think re-recorded guitars for the 4th time or something like that, where I thought I want to hand it over to an engineer. But then again, we had this like constellation where we got other people involved, and it wasn't like our vomit anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, for me, it was really like frustrating, because normally you record a song, you write a song, you make a music video. And I just recently saw an interview about a German band who said that they made a video that was so intense because they needed 3 days of filming 10 hours every day. And I was sitting there like, you guys should like...
Well, all respect to that. I mean, that is a lot. That is a lot of time.
Of course, that is a lot of time.
That is an effort that a lot of people will not put into it.
And people are not that stupid.
No.
I mean, like everybody who we were talking to is, why do you guys are so crazy about it?
Yeah.
Like it was
crazy is the right word.
Almost like the scientist putting up Frankenstein, and, you know, like there were so many like situations where I felt like being the guy with a paper bag over my head, sitting at an organ, like
well, it's because it's kind of an existential question, isn't it? Because for me, it was what makes life worth living. And it's that simple, and that's what drives me to do this. Nobody knows who I am or what I'm worth if I'm unable to show them. And it might be shit, what I make, but at least it's my shit. And then you get to judge my shit, and then you get to decide whether I'm shit or not. But if I don't deliver anything to you or to anyone, I become irrelevant. And if there's something that scares me, it's being irrelevant. So I think a lot of the drive for me personally is not one. I know you have a different perspective on that because we've talked many times about that. But for me, the one thing that makes or drives me is unfortunately fear in many ways, fear of becoming mediocre, of just existing and then disappearing. And then there's the question, well, does it matter? Because in a year, it might be gone. Nobody might care. In 2 years, it might be. In 10 years, it's going to be gone. What about 100 years? You know, will they remember us? Well, let's say they do remember us in 100 years, and it's going to be amazing. Wow, is that what my life is about? Is being remembered? Because I'm going to be forgotten maybe in 101 years.
Of course. And
that's not what it's about, really.
I think it's a pretty dangerous path as well. Like, of course, it's like really good to have that drive and to know, okay, I want to create something to be recognized in a certain way. For me, like, and this is what makes this Renaissance series so special. It was not about, okay, we do a stop motion music video that takes hundreds of hours of work because we want to do something better than others do, something different than others do.
No.
It was definitely not that. No. Like, the drive was, we had all that bullshit ideas in our heads and we just wanted to create something. And I recently saw a documentary about Eric Clapton.
Oh, yeah?
And even he said at some point, you know, there will be a time where people won't remember me.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in front of the TV and I was like, okay, like 3 minutes, Tears in Heaven was being played.
Yeah.
And then he says in the interview, like, I wonder if people will still remember me in 50 years. And then I thought, okay, like, we have this super small project, like getting people involved. Does anybody even really care in 5 years or in 10 years? And then I switched perspective where I thought, this is not what it's about.
No.
It's like, for me, the whole thing is a way to communicate. Just like we are sitting here and talking to each other, everything of that output is just like my innerst feelings and everything that and like, you know, when Corona was a thing, how relatable Over and Over was. And we have written this storybook month ahead.
That's true, yeah.
It was scary.
Even the planets at the end looked like the fucking coronavirus.
It was so scary. It was so scary that, like, there was
Adelaide,
a cloud.
when she's coughing.
Yeah, and there was a cloud, and there was, everything was going to hell, basically. And it was so relatable. And in a certain way, like, I can see so many of my personal opinions, views on the world in those videos. And that is, for me, what makes this amazing. And to share that. And you know, like, I always, if you ask me what makes a great song, and we had this discussion, is universal. Like, if you listen to Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles, like, even in 2021, someone could have a personal, like, bound to that song.
You have a personal connection to
those lyrics and kind of like transferring it to your own life. And this is what I wanted to do with the Renaissance series. I want that people look these videos, basically, or watch these videos, and they will think, I can relate to that in a personal way. It's not about us. It's not about us doing something that is special or different. It's about, like, something that should be universal. I want my little sister to see that video and have her own, like, universe created around that story that we made. Right?
But in a way, like, that perspective is kind of the same as where I'm coming from, except for me, it's based in fear of being irrelevant. What does that mean? That means that's not about me. It's about having the art as a form of communication, and it's the same. It's what you're talking about, basically. It's connecting to that other person. It's delivering a message. So I'm sitting here using words, talking to you, and I have a thought in my head, and I can keep that thought, and nobody will know what I'm thinking. And that's like somebody sitting in their basement and just playing music by themselves. Or I can use the tools I have, words, or music or art, to create a message a coherent message of words that connect, that you will understand. Because I could also just make noises. And you would never, maybe I'm trying to say something, but you're not going to understand. And that's why I think music and art that's too abstract, that only the artist understands, is the equivalent of somebody sitting there going, you know, it's nice, but I don't get it, and I'm never going to get it because this is what your thing. So I have to use a language which you will understand for you to absorb the message, and that's exactly what art is for me. And that's why creating this art is, because it's a form of communication, it's about connecting to the listener. So if there is no listener, or if there is no art, for me, that makes me irrelevant. And that's where I'm like, okay, well, I need my words. Yeah. I need to project what I want, what I have in my mind. Maybe nobody cares. I can sit here talking to you about, I don't know, quantum physics, or, well, that would probably be interesting for you, but whatever, the color of my shoes, then you'd be like, dude, I don't care.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And that could, maybe that's what we're doing. And we're doing this, and then somebody's like, dude, I don't care.
And it's totally fine.
But at least I've told you that my shoes have a certain color.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that is a great conclusion of everything that we were talking about, that like, if you want to do something, if you feel like you want to tell somebody a certain thing, and is it through music, is it through art, is it through like videos, it's the first thing is just do it, and like keep that message alive, and like communicate with everybody else that is in your environment.
Yeah.
In order to like tell them how you feel about a certain topic, or
Yeah.
And of course, like, there are some abstract lyrics in it, there is like some abstract
Yeah.
things in the videos that happen, but I still feel like that people are able to connect on a really like
Yeah.
in a really personal way, and this is what I love about the Renaissance series.
It's the most important thing. I think it's a good way to wrap it up, is that use us as an example. We're just a bunch of idiots who have no idea what we're doing.
and still have.
Just dare to be stupid.
Yeah.
Dare
Exactly.
to be stupid.